All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inpodsicated with Paul Schroeder. Thank you, Paul, for being Inpodsicated with me. Thank you for being a guest. And we're gonna start. We're good friends. We've met through bowling, and he's also worked on me, specifically on me, and getting my hips right, so they do not lie anymore. Thank you, Paul, for coming in. Paul, thank you. Come on.
I appreciate you so much, Big Z, for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure, and we'll just shoot from the hip and see where this train takes us.
We're definitely shooting from the hip today. So, Paul, and people don't know who you are. You are a physical therapist, and how long you been in the field now?
So I've been practicing physical therapy for 27 years, and I'm also a strength and conditioning specialist and a certified performance therapist. But
And what's the difference
obviously,
between
by
all three of
training
those?
and by job. Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying, what's the difference between all three of those things?
Yeah, so a physical therapist is someone who obviously has a degree in physical therapy. I graduated with a master's in physical therapy with maybe a year left in PT school for me. They were just beginning to graduate the very first doctor of physical therapy class, DPT. And
Yeah.
that became the vision. They called it Vision 2020, the profession, the American Physical Therapy Association. They wanted to have a little more clout to the degree of physical therapist
Mhm.
because, interestingly enough, there were professions like massage therapy, exercise physiologist, other, I think, professions that had less training and maybe were certifications that had more autonomy and more public acknowledgement than physical therapy. It was like,
Yes.
okay, doctors were up here, then maybe nurse practitioners, then physician assistants, and then PAs were like down here with nurses and sometimes like below nurses. And sometimes people are like, oh, you're the massage guy, right? Whatever.
No.
I believe in a lot of soft tissue mobilization. It's a big part of what I do, but there's so much more beyond that. So a physical therapist is someone who can evaluate, treat, educate, prescribe exercise, do manual therapy, neuromuscular control. It's a pretty neat allied health field in that I think it really gives you the largest swath of like practice area.
Hmm.
And there's so many other subspecialties. You could be in the emergency room. You could work with burns and wounds. You could work with pediatrics, with neurological cases. I've been doing outpatient orthopedics and sports medicine for 27 years. You can go into education, and I've taught at the college level as well.
Wow.
So there's so many different things, and that was one of the things that attracted me to the field. That's PT. Being a certified strength and conditioning specialist is probably, I think, one of the highest, if not the highest echelon of a vetted, serious program that you understand all the concepts of strength and conditioning and know how to program a client and work with clients from a strength and conditioning perspective. Because not all physical therapy, I think, has such a high strength and conditioning component to it. If you're working neuro rehab or doing working with someone who just had a stroke, yeah, the conditioning piece is there, but the higher level strength and conditioning stuff isn't used there. It's not used in home care so much. It's not used in burns and wounds. But the types of people and clients that I like to see were more that, active adult population, the, call it corporate athlete, regular athlete, recreational athlete, all the way on up to the professional athlete. And as I've carved out my practice 5 years ago to kind of break from the shackles of insurance, and I'm now an out of network practitioner, OON, out of network, meaning you pay cash for my services. But I'm no
Right.
longer indebted to some for profit insurance company who's governing what I can do. Or, sorry, Z, I can only spend 13 and a half minutes with you because in order for me to make this small nut that the insurance company is paying me, I have to see 3 or 4 of you in an hour. So it
Correct.
dilutes the product. It got very frustrating. So as such, when I've been in this, more out of network practice, it's allowed me the autonomy to treat clients the way I like and give them the treatment they deserve. Full one-on-one hour with me and just me, not passing them off to a non-trained practitioner, not having them sit on heat for 15 minutes or on machines. It's very active, very proactive, a lot of neuromuscular control, a lot of manual therapy, tons of client education, that kind of stuff. So I think the piece that helped me be a better practitioner in that realm was being a certified strength and conditioning specialist, which I was for 8 to 10 years before getting there. But this is, I think, my first chance of sort of, pardon the pun, but flexing my muscles in the strength and conditioning realm with my clients. Not that I didn't a little bit, but because of the demand of the client that I'm treating now and the more elite athlete, the more I need to really harness all my intellectual horsepower to do that. And in a similar fashion, when I became a certified performance therapist about 3 years ago, it was a similar kind of thing. Talks about like elite athlete enhancement, talks about things like recovery, all of that stuff, nervous system priming, all the things that are kind of cutting edge and latest and greatest for the active sports medicine athlete. And don't forget, hashtag bowlers are athletes.
Yes, bowlers are athletes. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm a weekend warrior, right? Once a week bowling right now. You know what? Speaking on the physical therapy, because I've had lots of physical therapy, and I've also been, with you. Um, I've had pretty good physical therapy. What I mean by that, and I'm not going to say the company or the doctor, or because I don't want to plug them or ruin their reputation. But for my hip that it got, I have my hip resurfaced and my labrum reattached. At first, because they were limited to the doctor's specific notes and his program, it wasn't the physical therapist program. The doctor, and I'm not going to say his name either, literally gave him day by day, minute by minute. This is exactly what you're going to do. Do not push it. Do not ruin my work. And in a way, it's like I understand the doctors being specific on how I should be recovering and what my landmarks or my checkpoints should be, but at the same time, that should be left up to the physical therapist who also has a doctorate degree, who's seeing me 3 to 4 times a week, who knows my body a little bit more better than say, you know what, this guy can actually push it today. Let's go for it. But I think that's kind of the give and take between the doctor side and the physical therapy side. If you're in that, that healthcare realm where you're limited by that. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's very true. And again, you want to respect, obviously, the post surgical protocol of the procedure overall, and then more specifically, more refine that specific surgeon, because that surgeon may have a certain technique or a certain experience with outcomes where, if the literature says this, you know what, I get better outcomes if I start weight bearing 2 weeks earlier. Or on the other side, you know what, I get better outcomes if you're in that spica brace until 6 weeks, and then we're not going to allow XYZ until whatever, which is great. And that's a framework. And we appreciate that. And shame on any physical therapist that doesn't pick up the phone or send an email or a text message regarding however your access is to that physician to broker that relationship, man, because it takes a village, and we're all villagers trying to row the boat in the same direction. So I think any healthcare practitioner needs to take their ego, put it on the shelf, communicate, understand that we're all trying to accomplish the same task, but with open lines of communication and understanding the collegial respect between all
Mhm.
these different healthcare professionals, you can allow them a little more autonomy and freedom. And I think that is going to optimize the outcome of someone like yourself versus someone who is like stuck in this rigid box of this is what we're going to do. Yeah, okay, it keeps you protected, but it doesn't allow for that much individualization. And I think
Right.
you,
And
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. No, it's fine. And that's what I was going to get to. That's what ended up happening because I wanted to push it so much. Anytime I would have a post op with the doctor, I would be like, you know what? Can you come? Because I need you to explain to him how far I am compared to his notes, how far I want to keep pushing. If I'm here, if I'm putting in 2 hours 3 times a week, and yeah, I know that 15 minutes in the beginning, 15 minutes in the end, I'm getting some kind of massage treatment or some heat treatment, some cold treatment. I get that, but I want to push it. I'm like, I got the time. I'm not working. Let's do it. I want to get back on my feet. I want to be 100% a little bit faster. I'm a former athlete. I know my body. And he was like, all right, cool, I'll go. And he went with them and he was asking questions and he was saying, okay, well, how's this pain threshold? He's like, there hasn't been any complaints about pain. He's not wincing. He's progressing very quickly. He's like, we're ahead of schedule, and I have them repeating certain exercise over again because we don't want to, you know, overstep our protocol that you've already put down. So there was a lot of communication. And because of that, like you were saying, they were having that communication and came to a consensus. All right, he can go little faster, a little more harder on the exercises. And we started moving to ski jumps and, you know, being on the trampoline and one legged and all different types of stuff. And I was like, man, told my PT, get creative and go hard. Pretend I'm Derrick Rose and you're trying to rehab me, get me back on the court tomorrow. That's the kind of push I need. I need to be pushed. I'm an athlete. I get bored if I'm doing the same. All right, well, cat, cow. All right, fireman, do your fireman rolls with your leg. I mean, it gets kind of monotonous and boring. It's like, well, I can do this at home. I don't need to pay you if I can do this at home. So,
100%.
right. And I was like, if I'm paying you to give me this treatment that I can't do at home, then do stuff that I cannot do at home. All this stuff that you printed out, I can do this at home. When I get home, I'm gonna do it right away anyways. Don't worry about that. So it was a great relationship that ended up being smoothed out. You know, I think that because of the physical therapist had a bunch of his patients, me included, that they started building a relationship where, all right, he's following protocols. And then there's certain, you know, obviously, if you have someone who is not an active person, yes, you want to be super safe and super conservative on the treatment, on the post op treatment. For an athlete who has muscle memory and understands the physiology, just like myself, I'm a PE teacher, so like I understand physiology and how stuff works. And if you teach me once or twice, boom, I got it. Let's go. Let's keep moving forward and let's keep pushing it. And once they seen that, they're like, okay, this guy wants to get better. He needs to get better. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Cool. That's a great perspective of the story that you share. And I'm glad you had that advocate for you with the communication with your physical therapist. Not everyone has that opportunity. When I first started marketing in PT, which was probably 25 years ago, like it's been such more of a thing nowadays, the past 10, 12, 15 years for PTs to market. But like 25 years ago, like marketing, it was like that, like, oh, I don't market. And
That's
it
not
was,
my yeah.
it's so funny. Like I didn't realize that, no, you're cultivating your brand, you're building your business, you're trying to, so yes, you have to market, but like, I viewed it as such a, oh, yeah, marketing is a, I didn't get my MBA. I'm not into marketing. I'm in healthcare. But no, dude, with anything you do right now, you and I are marketing ourselves, right? So
100%.
for me to kind of like marketing, I took aback. But one of my first marketing things was using that vehicle right there. There were other suggestions like dropping off crumb cakes to the office staff and trying to set up lunch and learns, but like,
That's
but
a very old school way of doing things.
oh,
Very
exactly. And
old
again,
school.
this is still the '90s, but
Yeah.
I thought the best was when you can accompany a patient to a follow up physician visit, and then you're that walking progress report. I mean,
Yep.
I can't tell you how many progress reports I've written in my time, and my hope and pray is that they may see 6 to 8 seconds of the light of the physician's eyes, but I think half the time, 2/3 of the time, they probably don't, and that's not befaulting them. They and the whole healthcare system is so squeezed, in that they say the average orthopedist spends 3 minutes and 30 seconds of one-on-one FaceTime with their
Oh,
clients. So
not me.
it's
Not me. I'm like, I'm getting my full 45 minutes, sir. Yeah. Well, the surgeon was, I spent maybe like 15 minutes with him, but my doctor who evaluated me, she's a knee and hips. And I was like, nope, I'm asking questions. I kept asking questions. I'm like, I have this pain here. I have this pain here. They did the x-ray. I'm like, no, I need an MRI. You can't see that on an x-ray. You cannot see the pain I have on an x-ray. They're like, yeah, your bones are this and that. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but I have this pain, the shooting pain, and it's coming through here, and you cannot see that. And so I had to fight for an MRI. And then they were like, well, we can give you cortisone shots to make it, bearable. I'm like, I don't want to do bearable. I want you to go in there and fix it. Just if you can fix it, let's go ahead and fix it. I'm more an aggressive type of person when it comes to my healthcare, and I advocate for myself. And a lot of people don't do that and don't ask questions.
that
And
was the
if they,
punch I was going to give you. I was going to give you such kudos because not enough people are advocates for themselves.
yeah,
And
and
you have to be. Otherwise, there's a very good chance you'll be relegated to that 3.5 minutes kind of thing. So I don't think that progress note is per se going to be read, but that doc would be hard pressed to not at least give you a casual, 30 seconds, 60 seconds of FaceTime and listen to what you're going to say, and color the story better with that person right there. And then, if nothing else, I've always found that enhances the accountability factor for the physician. Just, I mean, because I know I've been on the other side myself when
Hmm.
people might not know I'm a physical therapist or in healthcare and the way they
Hmm.
behave. And then I'm there with someone as their advocate, and, maybe they get a little more percentage. And it's a great way to relationship build that way.
It really is. So, how did you get? Where did first of all, like, where did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up 6 miles west of the George Washington Bridge in Bergen County, New Jersey, right next to Hackensack, town of Lodi, New Jersey.
Lodi, New Jersey. Wow, no idea where that's at. I've been to New York once. I've
Six
been,
miles west of New York, dude. 10
yeah,
minutes.
yeah, yeah. So I've been. I think we were in Newark. Yeah, we spent a
Where
night
my
in Newark.
grandfather's from.
Yeah, and then we took the pass onto to Manhattan, and I spent a whole day in New York, and I did so much in so little time, and then back home the next day.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I would love New York is a great place to visit for me. I never thought that'd be some place I'd want to live, and I know a lot of people that they love it. They love the fast pace. They love having everything at a convenience. But you're paying for that convenience.
Yes,
Everything's
you
super
are.
expensive there. So, so you're from there. Did you go to school there as well in
So
that
yeah,
area?
I went to high school there and then college. So pretty much from age 5 to age 20, I thought I wanted to do one thing and one only, and that I was pretty convicted that not I wasn't just going to be a doctor, but from age 5, man, age 9, age 18, age 20, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a doctor for
Wow.
kids because I felt like I was a little kid myself. I didn't want to grow up. I
Mhm.
could relate to kids, and I think I just had a positive regard for my pediatrician because he wasn't dismissive of me. A lot of times adults can be dismissive of someone who's 5 or 6 or 7. But,
Right.
if you got half a brain rattling around or, another sense. And my doctor didn't treat me like that. So I was like, this is a pretty cool thing. And then there's the aspect of, it's good to help people, like the human body. So that's kind of how it was. So I was like, all right, let me go to a good pre med program. I was very fortunate to get into the University of Rochester in
Okay.
Rochester, New York. And then the big thing, kind of second semester junior year, you're gearing up to take that entrance exam to medical school called the MCAT, right?
MCAT,
So
yes.
me and three of my friends who were also pre med majors were going to walk off campus because there was a Kaplan class about a mile off campus. They used to
Mhm.
offer like how to beat the SAT, how to crack the LSAT, how to
Yeah.
score well on the MCAT. So we were all going to do that. And in my pocket, I literally had a check in my pocket, and it was blank, but my parents were like, "Yeah, write it out for $1,000 because we want you to do well." So my parents gave me this check, which I think was weighing heavy. And it almost sounds made up, but like literally on this walk, where my other three friends, the four of us are walking, and about a third of a mile on the walk, dude, I peeled off like on the fringe ends of campus because I think the gravity was hitting me. I'm like, all right, I'm about to spend $1,000 here, and I think I got a little older, and I had some friends and fraternity brothers that were in med school. I got a better idea of what a physician was, and
Okay.
just how hard it was, and 110 hours in residency possibly. So one thing, just as a person, as a human, that I thought I wanted to do, in my 20-year-old self, I was like, dude, I want to always be able to give 110% being a husband, being a dad, and to my profession. And at that point, what I knew at my 20-year-old self, I was like, boy, I don't know if I could do this being a physician.
Mhm.
And since I didn't have that conviction, I didn't want to spend that grand of my parents' money on something that I wasn't like, wholeheartedly 110%. I used that number before, convicted in. So I peeled off, and I think I went to the rec room and shot some pool or did whatever. Tried to figure out my life. So I didn't know what the hell to do. And then my one of my former roommates was like, "Yeah, you should." And he ran on the Division III cross country team at the University of Rochester. Who that year they were D3 national champions.
Okay.
So he was always working out, and he had 2 or 3 bouts of PT, so kind of knew what that was. He was pre med too, but he didn't want to go to med school either. Fast forward 31 years, he's now a practicing veterinarian for 26 years. But
Wow.
at the time, he took that MCAT class. But he was also the guy that said, you know what, you should think about physical therapy. And this is in 1992, Z. And I was like, physical therapy? Isn't that like a 6-year-old German lady in an old sweatsuit at the parallel bar saying raise your leg 10 times? That's literally. I'm not. I know it's kind of.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I can picture exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's. I don't know the age of your listeners, but again, I'm 52. Graduated high school in '89, and this is late college in '92. And physical therapy wasn't quite what it was. It was just at that time being tabbed as like the U.S. News and World Report top 10 professions, #1 physical therapy, and then it started gaining more popularity in public eye. Still, from a public relations way, we really struggle as a profession. But that's a tangent for another time. Maybe you could have me as a guest again in 2 years if there's room on the guest list, because I know everyone's pining to get on the show with Big Z. But
Thanks, brother.
so yeah, he's like, you know what? Why don't he's like, I volunteered. He's like, because if you're gonna go to PT school, they're gonna require at least 100 hours of volunteer experience, and if nothing else, dude, he's like, check it out for a couple hours and see a day in the life of what it's like. And then if you don't like it, don't come back the second day, or a day 2, 6 hours in, then you're like, all right, I'm done. This isn't for me. But probably on my second day, like an hour and a half in, dude, like that light bulb went off, man, in my head, and I just did a fresh one. So I got a good light bulb right here. Light bulb went off on my head and my soul, and I was like, no, 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 this is what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. The way the patient practitioner dynamic was real cool. Someone sees their, we'll just say, orthopedic physician on average,
Sure.
maybe once every 6 weeks, 12 weeks, and for 3.5 or 15 minutes, whatever it is. And that's it. But in PT, twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, you're with that person hour, hour and a half, or if it's a moderate stage ACL, a rotator cuff repair, you're spending 5, 6 hours a week with these people, blood, sweat, and tears. You want their goals to be your goals. And that's the piece. And I always liked psychology. I was a psych minor. If I could do it again, I would be a psych major. And I've been a clinical mentor or a clinical instructor for 26 different DPT students in my career, meaning
Wow.
they come to me for 3, 4 months and do their clinical rotation
Oh,
with me, residency, whatever it is. And one of the things I've said so many times, I'm like, listen, I could teach a monkey. I could teach you how to do these manual techniques or XYZ, but 85%, dude, is being able to relate to that person. It's people skills, interpersonal skills, the soft skills. And it makes sense, but I think you don't know that until you're at least 30, 35 in life, right?
hmm
The importance of that. So yeah, so at that time, to bring it back, I was like, wow, I could really see myself, this really inspiring me, and I think that this could be a place where I could have the potential to excel. And here I am.
No, that's a great story. But where I'm thinking, like, all right, you want to go to pediatrics, and then you're like, you fall into PT, and you're like, oh my god, this is so awesome. This is pretty cool to do. Why wasn't there a merge? Why? I mean, why don't you focus on children's physical therapy?
That's a great question. I had my girlfriend kind of ask me that question too, but in a way, she was a PT. And again, just to date it, so we each graduated from college in '93, but she graduated with her bachelor's in physical therapy, and
Yeah.
it wasn't that much far when I was in high school or even in middle school, where they were still awarding the associate's degree for physical therapy. But then I think the profession realized, holy cow, we need to elevate it to at least the level of a bachelor's, at least the level of a master's. Now we need to
hmm
make it a DPT. So that kind of a jam. So she was already, when I was dating her, she was just doing her last affiliations. And, you know, month 6 through 16 of our relationship, she was already a practicing PT, and I was just hoping to do it. So she had a much more mature perspective. And I got to see, I actually met her. I was volunteering at a neuro rehab place, the Kessler Institute of Rehabilitation,
Oh wow.
where
Okay.
Christopher Reeves was.
Right.
And I actually met her at that facility 4 months after he was discharged. 3 weeks after Ben Vereen was discharged, if anyone knows who that singer entertainer is. But yeah, I met her there, and she was, relaying stories of in the field of her working in peds, and I knew what physical therapy was for pediatrics, and it's usually very protracted cases, very involved dysfunctions, things that they talk about know thyself, and I know that I didn't have the patience, nor the
Mhm.
skill set, nor the desire to be there. I mean, we're talking. This is like, for example, all right, our 6 month goal is to be able to head right for 10 seconds. And that's in 6 months. We're gonna work to that goal in 6 months. So the baby steps to get there, I didn't think I had the patience.
Mhm.
And some of them are non-communicative or minimally communicative. So I thought it was hard. It was just not my wheelhouse, not my suit. And I was, God bless the people that can work in that
Right,
and
that
in
patience, yeah.
other realms, but that was just not for me. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, it definitely does. But that was one of the questions when you're telling me a story, like, oh, pediatrician and a pediatrician, and then physical therapy, which is funny because when I went to college at UIC, I was in the program for physical therapy, and I'm a semester in, and they're like, you know what, we're changing it from a bachelor's to a master's, and I'm like, I don't want to, I'm 18, 19. I'm like, I don't want to be here an extra 2 years. I don't want to do this. So I ended up transferring out, and then I go to another college. I'm about to graduate with a Spanish degree, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I start all over, and I end up graduating with a bachelor's in physical education and health. So it just, I understand what you're going to, what you're talking about. Like, it was not respected, or it was not elevated to the elevation that should have been, because it's a lot of work, and you have to know as a doctor, because you have to know about everything, how everything moves, how everything interacts, and it's a tough profession, and especially when you're talking about, like you said, for kids, and that aspect. If you don't know what you're gonna get into, you do your hours. You're like, okay, this is not for me. I'm gonna switch lanes. I'm gonna do my physical therapy in this lane, and that's similar to me for teaching. They're like, hey, you got to do so many hours in elementary school, you got so many hours middle school, and so many hours in high school. And I knew from day one, I was a high school teacher. I knew from day one, I know how to relate to those kids, and I can speak their language and get stuff that's um, relatable to them. Whereas with the little kids, it's like it's a whole different personality. So when my first year of teaching, my only teaching job I was able to acquire was a K through 8. And that is about 5 different personalities that I had to be on a daily basis. And that was so exhausting because, it would be like, all right, well, you're going to start off with seventh grade, then you'll have eighth grade, then you'll have kindergarten, and then you'll have third, and then you'll have fifth. And it's like the bouncing up and down of your just mindset and the personality that you have to be, because you have to be straightforward, for the older kids and middle school kids. You have to be straightforward, more military style, where you have to have things in order because you want routine. For the little kids, it's like, all right, guys, we're gonna focus on the color red, and please stand on the red dots. And it's a little bit more Barney like, Sesame Street like, where you have to be character and be happy and go lucky. And it's like, if the last class just pissed me off, it's hard to turn that off within 4 minutes or 2 minutes, between one class leaving and one class coming in, because it's like an airport. There's really not much buffer time between each other. So I knew that, coming out of college, that wasn't me. And then once I had that job, I'm like, yeah, it's high school for me. And it's I think all of my I'm 15 years in teaching. I've taught 2 years at the middle school, elementary, well, 2 years at the elementary. I did 4 years in middle school with sixth grade, and the rest has been high school. And the middle school, it took some adjustment, but once they got to know my personality and how I work, it worked like a well-oiled machine. Same thing for the high school. So I was like preparing them from high school. So these are the expectations when you go to a high school. This is how they're going to want it. This is what we're going to do now. So that way you're going to be ahead of every other kid in there. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. So that's kind of the thing. Same mindset as this. You know what you want, and you have to be personable, and you have to market yourself. All these soft skills that you're talking about goes to every single industry that you're in, whatever you're trying to do. So you got to have those soft skills to be personable and being liked. And if that's not something that you do, you're going to end up sitting behind a desk or, typing numbers into a computer, whatever you want to do, but that's not for you.
Well said. Thanks for sharing your story and your passion.
No problem, man. I definitely got a passion for it. So you've been doing this for such a long time. What was your first experience? Like, what was your first experience like with a patient coming out of college?
So that was University of Rochester. Then I went to PT school,
Right.
which ultimately was a little story there. I went to Utica College of Syracuse University because after 2 years of applying to 18 schools, I got rejected from 17 schools
Wow.
in 2 years. Yeah, man, because I ultimately didn't have the grades. And at the time that I was applying, I don't know how they calculated this, but the big buzz was, and this was before the number of PT schools proliferated. So there was a
Mhm.
strong, and the U.S. News and World Report, that was like a huge thing that injected life into physical therapy. Like that article in specific, that was like kind of the peak of the mountain. But there weren't as many schools, so at that time, it was they assessed that it was more challenging, more difficult to get into physical therapy school than to get into medical school. So it's like, all right, I bailed on this MCAT thing, got into PT school, but
They can't get in.
yeah, and they were rejecting people with 3.6, 3.7 GPAs.
Wow.
And at the University of Rochester, it's a very sort of forward. It's not this ultra liberal school; it's a liberal arts school, but they have some very liberal and forward thinking administrative policies. And one that was there for about 9, 10 years was a concept that freshman grades don't count. You're like, what? Yes, they count, but on your transcript, pass or fail. That's it.
Hmm.
The spirit behind that was they didn't want to prevent a freshman from taking like, um, uh, biopsychology or something like that, or more advanced level things, thinking, oh, it's only going to be juniors and seniors. How am I ever going to get through that? Or it's too hard. No, take whatever you want. Like, if you're a mechanical engineering major, take that Spanish class, take conversational Spanish. It doesn't matter. Like maybe you're not good at, and just to get exposure kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I think that hits the mark for 10, 12% of kids. But if we're learning nothing from this podcast, it's my lack of maturity throughout my growing up and maybe on some levels now. Um, but I didn't have that maturity. I adopted the thing. One of the subtitles, or in parentheses with the Rochester grading policies, was D's for degrees, right?
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't a
I
failing
do.
thing.
Yeah.
So I really took that on. And I think my last 2 or 3 years of high school, I really put my nose to the grindstone to get into a good college and all that stuff. And then I was like, oh, so you're a little bit like a caged tiger let loose, not having the supervision or mom and dad cracking the whip saying, no, dude, you go astray. And no, I'm taking your car keys, or you're not going out,
Mm.
whatever it is. So I didn't prioritize my academics like I ought. And then come first semester, sophomore year, I get a 1.6 GPA, 1.60. Now, mind you, starting
Woo.
sophomore year, right now, I don't have 8 semesters to make a GPA. I only have 6 because the
Correct.
first 2 are gone. And guess
Yep.
what? You got to apply before your last semester. So I have 5 semesters left. So I started off 1.6 and I came back, and God bless my father. That was one of the few times sophomore year I was, 19 years old, and my mom was real upset when she saw the grades, and we're paying all this money for you. And I'm an only child, and God bless my parents, and thank you to them right now. If mom ever listens to this, for providing me this opportunity. Dad too, he's no longer with us, but thank you for that. But we're not going to pay for all this money to have you go, jerk around and this and that. So my father was just real cool. Just talk to me man to man with my mom in the other room. He's like, hey, listen, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go, you're going to move your ass off the fraternity hall. You're going to get your ass in the library,
Yeah.
and you're going to get a 3.0. Or, hey, guess what, dude? You're going to Bergen Community College on your dime. I'm like, dude, I got it. Then I basically Dean's listed out. I had one semester there where I did get a 4.0. So it's like, all right, you could apply yourself and do pretty well. I was only taking 8 or 10 credits at that time, but my point is the effort that I made in those other five still only got me to like a 2.83 GPA because of
Okay.
the bad habits that I learned. So everyone told me, like, dude, if you don't have a 3.335 cumulative GPA, don't even bother applying. And they wanted a higher science GPA. My science GPA was 2.33. Okay, it's like I know I went to like a top. It was like the
No, it's fine.
top
Get
25
C's.
school, but wow, like I was laughed at for PT school. And the one spot that took a chance, it was a developing fledgling program, and I was going to be a member of the second class. The director of the program saw himself in me. He's like, you're probably an A student, but you involved yourself in all these other things and maybe you got BC results, but I know you're an A student. So I'm going to give you a chance. So sure enough, he did give me a chance. By the way, also that summer before, because I didn't get into PT school, I wound up taking a job as a research assistant and a PT aide. And that guy was nice enough, and he was very highly connected. I had no idea at the time. He was president of the pain subgroup, pain management subgroup of the Physical Therapy Association. And we did some research that got accepted for presentation at the World Conference in Physical Therapy, place where most of the people were 40, 50, 60. Here's me, 22 years old, presenting research in the Netherlands. So it's like I had
Wow.
that behind me. And if John Garzione didn't give me that opportunity, no way. If Russ Meyer, the director of this fledgling program, didn't look at me and look in the mirror, I probably wouldn't have even had the interview to have the chance to go there. So we go there. Utica College of Syracuse University didn't you needed to be a candidate for accreditation. They didn't even have candidacy for accreditation. Utica College of Syracuse University Z had a well-established occupational therapy program for 30, 35 years. And I think the school foolishly hung their hopes on, oh, we got a great OT program. We'll just hire two professors. We're not going to have full cadavers. We'll just do quarters. We're going to only have one lab space, and that's about it. So in October, I'm on campus for like 6, 7 weeks, and the APTA came by to see if we could be candidates for accreditation. And there were like
Mhm.
114 criterion, and we had like 88 things wrong. And they're like, dude, you got to remediate all these things if you want to have a chance. And then silly Utica College, rather than really putting the resources forth or waiting 2 years, they applied for candidacy again in April. Okay, they hired two more faculty, built two more labs, did a couple other things, and they came back and they're like, okay, you got 68 things wrong. And the way candidacy for accreditation works is if you apply for candidacy 3 times and fail, you have to shut your doors and you can't open up for another minimum 5 years. So I
Oh
knew I
wow.
was in a sinking ship, as did a bunch of other people in my class, and especially the class above me, who were a year
Right.
out from being PTs of a non-accredited program, which means nothing. Then
Nothing.
you're a paper boy at that point.
Yeah.
You're a Lyft driver. You're delivering Uber. So
Yeah.
so there was a class action suit that was threatened. I wasn't part of that, of people in my school to the university. So I think the university was like, hammer, hammer, hammer. They reach out to Virginia Nealon, the director of clinical education for all 218 programs. And then there was one program who said, all right, here's the deal. Anyone who's in good standing, 3.0 or above, they got to pay $50 to admission fee. They will get automatically accepted, but they're going to start square one. So all that anatomy, physiology, pathology, neuroanatomy, all that done, start square one. Hey, dude, I was in a sinking ship anyway. It's better than wiping butt as a nurse's aide in the interim
Yeah.
while I see if this is still a viable option. So I was very fortunate at the time. It was called the Institute of Physical Therapy, and I was a member of the second class of that Master of Physical Therapy program. But that became accredited with distinction. I think out of 112 things, that had 112 things right. Within a week of me graduating, the name of the place was changed to the University of St. Augustine for Health Sciences. And now they have 8, 9 campus, and there is no school that graduates more physical therapists. And it's as far as I know, it's the only proprietary institution. This Renaissance man, like the world's most interesting man,
Yeah.
uh, the guy who ran the program, Stanley Paris, reminds me of that guy. So he was just like, oh, I've been doing graduate education in PT for 18, 20 years. Let me hang a shingle and make some money. Every other
Yeah.
PT program is associated with a college or university. This is just some dude, and he had some money. He had a bunch of yachts. I wound up having a side job bartending his private parties as he's entertaining the Illuminati of the world, of the United States. This is the guy who has twice or thrice swum the English Channel. He's
Wow.
done the Hawaii triathlon. He circumnavigated the globe in a non-powered vessel, only with solar power. Like a crazy guy. To raise money for the Physical Therapy Foundation, he's like, all right, I'm going to bike from my St. Augustine campus to the San Diego campus, and I'm going to do century rides for 24 days or whatever, 36 days. So the guy rode 100 miles, 100 miles, 100 miles. So kind of crazy dude, but interesting guy. And on some level, he has influenced my philosophy of what I think physical therapy is.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I mean, going from like, oh my God, I'm not gonna graduate. I'm in a sinking ship, and then getting this accepted, even though you did have to start over. You did go to a pretty good school. Now that's your profession, but we've met through one of your passionate hobbies, which is bowling.
Oh yeah,
And I think I've witnessed two of your perfect games within the last 3 years that
maybe
I
you
know of.
watched
I
one on
actually
repeat again on one drunken night. And
no. Did you not have two?
no, I have. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
in
I was
front of
like,
you,
wait,
maybe.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think past 4 years I've seen you have two. I'm pretty sure you've had more, right?
Six sanctioned. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Why are you not on the PBA tour?
That's a joke. A, I have a job. B, I am painfully aware that I am 2 to 2.5, 3 levels not good enough.
Yeah,
I'm too dedicated to my family and my profession to do the practice that's necessary to be that elite athlete. And then ultimately, and this is sort of the thing, I don't know if we're going to touch on it, in terms of it being a viable option, how you get remunerated, how you get rewarded, how you get compensated, how you get paid. Boy, oh boy, if you're not one of the top 25, 30 PBA members,
yeah,
um,
you're not getting paid.
it's difficult. And I understand sponsorships, and I'm fortunate to have some good working relationships and client relationships with some of these people. So it's not like they're showing me uh, their financial numbers, but I just know how
Right.
it is, and it's a shame that professional bowlers make 1/18th or 1/32nd of what like a golfer tennis pro makes. When I tell people, I'm like, yeah, if you're the 13th ranked bowler in the world, you're not quite making as much money as the person who's ranked 198th on the PGA Tour. Not even close. Uh,
Not even close.
so that's another piece, but it's mostly those other things. But it's nice to have a passion, and hopefully, bowling is something that I could do, until the end of my days.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you are a very good bowler, and I try to watch you as much as I can because you can always learn from someone else. And obviously, with you having six sanctioned perfect games, which is very hard to do, I think. I mean, I've come close. I've had 8 strikes in a row. I mean, that's as close as I can get, and I don't think I'm that good. I don't think I have a decent approach at the moment, and I'm working at it every week. But how did you get into bowling?
I'm going to tackle that in a second. I just want to know what your fee is to be my hype man, because offline I will promise I'll give you 3 sessions. We could talk numbers, but yeah.
We could talk off air.
So was the question, how did I get into bowling?
How did you get into bowling,
So I
and how did you get so good?
yeah, so that's funny. Imposter syndrome. But I think just like every kid, any kind of normal kid, like, okay, rainy Saturday afternoon, all right, let's go to the movies, let's go bowling. Or,
Mhm.
my seventh birthday party was bowling. But I didn't bowl more excessively than anyone else. But ironically, my father was in a league bowling on Wednesday nights at 6:30 from, I think, 5 years before I was born until my sophomore year of high school. That was his thing. And there's an aspect to me, and I think this is more my father, who likes like regimentation. And
Mhm.
this is what we
Yeah,
do on each day. And on Saturdays, I play golf. And
yeah.
Sunday morning, I'll play golf early and come home and I'm going to watch my Giants. Like, that's how my dad was. But even as a kid, there was just some like positive, I don't want to say mystical, but something kind of cool. Like, okay, yeah, dad's doing his thing. He's with the boys and he's bowling, and they would bowl pots, and I think it was like 50 cents for high games. So if he won like one or two high games, there might be 12 or 16 quarters on the counter that he might split with me or give me. And I thought that was really cool. Or kind of seeing the standing sheet and high games of the week of, cool, dad, you bowled a 183, that kind of thing. So that was the start of it. But his father before him was a carpenter. But he had, talk about niche practice. My
Hmm.
grandfather had a niche specialty in that, and he did any kind of carpentry. But his wheelhouse was fixing and repairing and building bowling alleys.
Wow.
So he was, so his like carpenter shop was out of the same bowling center where Tita Semez, who was a PBA member. I hope he's still with us. And I think he may have bowled PBA 50 tour, maybe 15, 20 years ago, like the senior
Okay.
tour. But he and Tita Semez were together out of Rizzuto Barra Lanes. So back in the day, and I'm sure you know this, man, you're a learned man. You're a repository of useless and useful information.
Information.
But
Yeah.
somewhat useful information is the fact that, but we talk about bowlers not making money. You were in the 50s and even in the early 60s, man. If you were a pro ball player, if you were Yogi Berra, if you were Phil Rizzuto, hey, guess what? You needed to hustle a second job to make ends meet. So you worked at like a suit factory, you did whatever. So Phil Rizzuto and Yogi Berra bought a bowling alley in Clifton, New Jersey. And that's where he was a touring PBA guy, Tita Semez, at his shop, and my grandfather did his carpentry out of there and
Wow.
would fix different bowling alleys. There were a couple of like uh, rich people that had bowling alleys in their basement, and he would go
Hmm.
fix their stuff. And my dad, when he was 7, 9 years old, would be his apprentice, fall asleep in the gutters until 2 o'clock in the morning. So hearing stories of my dad being an 8, 9 year old, and my grandfather resurfacing the lanes and putting the lacquer down, and that whole stuff was cool. He went on a military flight and built a bowling alley on a military base in Reykjavik, Iceland. So just kind of cool stuff. And he was a great bowler. He bowled like maybe 2, 3 leagues a week. Like this is back in the he was lefty, and he averaged about
Hmm.
185, which back in the
Oh wow.
day I was like, oh. So I had an older cousin who I went to Bergen Catholic High School. It's a regional all boys high school, 1,200 boys. My
Whoa.
cousin was 8 years older than I. And when he went
Okay.
on Fridays, he did this thing, intramural bowling. And same thing, like my dad, I thought it was really cool. You get to eat snacks, French fries, get to play pinball, all that stuff. He'd show me the stat sheet. So I was like, I think that's something I want to do when I go to Bergen Catholic. So sure enough, I did intramural bowling, and I didn't practice or anything, but I think right out of the chute, I was probably averaging 140, 142, like without anything. I was like,
Jeez.
all right, this is pretty good. And then that next year, sophomore year, I decided I did intramural bowling again, practiced a little over the summer, got a little better. So I think sophomore year I was averaging like 171. And that's really the thing that tripped it. So I'd probably say about 86 is when I would consider myself like doing like competitive bowling. I had the great opportunity between junior and senior year to do Dick Richter's bowling camp, where you went to Ithaca, New York for 5 days. And it was like bowling camp 9, 10 hours a day. 1/3 of the time, 2, 3 hours was just the mental game, mental imagery, progressive relaxation, all these types of things that bowlers are using now. I was very fortunate to kind of have that. So came back for senior year, and then was probably averaging 190, 195. And then after senior year, I went back for returning bowlers camp, and I went to Rochester for academics. But they had a bowling club, but it wasn't even an intervarsity club. It was a recreational club,
Yeah.
so it was SA funded. So we bowled in like 2, 3 tournaments a year. And sometimes
Mm.
we would scrimmage RIT, who is an intercollegiate team. And at that point, I was maybe just barely averaging deuce. And when I went to PT school, I started averaging above deuce. And that's kind of how it's been.
Man. Man.
And
I
I
mean,
think I was at my best when I was bowling three leagues a week. I think that I really struggled. 14, 15 years ago, I went from 3 to 2 and then to 1. So that's 14, 15 years. I'm bowling 1 league a week. And up until this year, I was maybe only practicing every other week in like 3 games, and that's not enough. So this year, I don't know if you noticed now that I'm at Waveland Bowl this year versus the other
Mhm.
2 years, I'm bowling better, I'm scoring better, I'm making more action money because you know what? I'm not just bowling those 3 games on Tuesday, but I'm practicing
Mhm.
2, maybe 3 other times, and not a lot, maybe 30-minute bouts, 50-minute bouts, but it's practice with purpose and it's with drills. And then when I'm not on doing my on lane stuff, I'm really, I think, living and breathing my bowl program. That's that acronym BOWL. B, be ready for movement. O, optimize mobility. W, work out off the lanes. And L, lengthen, stretch, and recover. So even my workouts in the last 3-5 years have evolved from more like a bodybuilding style of thing to more functional movements. So I'd say now it's way more functional and very bowling specific. So sometimes I'll only work out 3 times a week, and 2 of those times it'll be 90% bowling centric stuff. But it's not that bowling centric. It's life centric stuff that I've adapted to bowling, and I think that's
What would be an example of that?
okay. So I think a great example would be, uh, and I could tell you this because you're a PE teacher. Do you know what a curtsy lunge is?
Yeah, and as funny enough, I was just watching that video and I liked it. The you had the bowler do the curtsy lunge and he had the bowling ball in one hand.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I was watching it and then he had to switch the other hand.
yeah.
He didn't have the
On its
capability of
non-dominant side, because I know you don't
gonna
finish
use it.
that shot, but guess what? That other side of the body is responsible for propelling you that way.
Correct.
So that's the thing. Bowling is very
It's
unique
some
in that uh, it's a sport activity. I have a little dry erase
oh,
board here too, man. But it's a sport activity that involves constant asymmetric repetitive loading, right? You're always
yes,
unilateral, one side, holding a spheroid, 14 to 16 pounds. Most people use
right.
15-pound ball, right? The same time. I like trying to tell stories, right? So I talked
Mhm,
about that. Bowling is a sport activity that has constant, asymmetric, repetitive loading. And if we want to use that acronym, it's CARL, right? CARL.
yeah,
Because I'm trying to illustrate a point here. So let's take Carl. Carl is your average league bowler, right?
okay.
And the average league bowler, and if we say blended average is 153 for our league, and it's something like that. President Mike told
Mhm,
me what it is. If you're about a 150-ish average bowler, in 3 games, you're going to throw plus or minus 3 or 4, about 50 shots. 50 makes it even math, right? So
right.
that's 50 shots where you're with one arm holding a 15-pound ball and essentially
Mhm,
performing a curtsy lunge. Now, this is the strengthening conditioning piece of this. We really want to think about volume and getting resilience and make sure, like from one week to the next, you don't increase your volume by more than 10% with anything. We're getting this from like running literature or CrossFit literature or anything. Anytime you increase your training beyond 10%, you're getting in that amber zone, that yellow light. 15, 20% red light. It's not if injury happens, it's when. It might not happen that week, but 1 or 2 weeks after that, that more than 10% repetitive loading is going to get you. But let's take 50 shots in league, right? And we'll multiply that by 15 pounds. So that's a 15-pound load times 50 reps. That's going to give you your volume. So your overall volume in league is 750 pounds of volume
mhm,
just by bowling league. That doesn't
right.
count practice for league or any practice that you're doing outside of that. By the way, when you bowl 3 games in league, it's the equivalent of walking 1 mile in terms of foot pace. So we talked. That's Carl, right? He's your average uh, league bowler. Let's talk about your optimum bowler, who's your professional. So we'll call this guy Carlo. So Carlo's a bowler too. And if you want to talk, and I know this is at the extreme end of things because they're amateurs and they're high school bowlers who maybe bowl 16, 20 games a week. But in a pro's average tournament, they'll bowl, an average tournament is 32 games, right?
Mhm,
And because a pro doesn't throw as many spare shots as the league bowler, the math ratio is not the same. So I accounted for the fact that professionals throw on average 60, 62% strike range, where the league bowler is throwing 18-20% strike range on
Right.
average. So for an average tournament, we'll say 32 games, that's 480 shots. You multiply that times 15 pounds, and then that's an average volume that week of 7,200 pounds,
Jesus.
or 8-9 times that of a league bowler. And you don't go from that to that in Jump Street. That's how injuries
No.
happen. Now let's get to a major tournament or something like the U.S. Open, where you're going to bowl 52 games, and that's 860 shots with a 15-pound ball, or an overall weekly volume of 12,900 pounds. Now these
Wow.
numbers, they're just big numbers, but I work my gyms, my clinics are located in 3 CrossFit gyms, so I'm very familiar now with loading and some of the metrics and numbers from CrossFit. And you look at their weekly volumes from their lifting and deadlifting and squatting, and on some level, they're higher than this. But this is just from bowling. This isn't training for bowling. This isn't anything. This is just doing your sport. So, and yeah, there's the curtsy lunges thing, man. So I just
There it is.
want
Yeah,
to
and
make,
it's
make that point.
right, and it's hard when you're trying to try to focus exercises on that and make sure that you balance. And I've always said this with when we're working out, showing my high school kids is you have to do everything on equal sides of the body. So if you do 10 on this side, you got to do 2 on 10 on the other side. Just because your left hand is weak because it's not your dominant hand. Yes, we'll make adjustments later on to correct that. But for right now, I want you doing exactly the same thing on both sides to get used to the motion. But wow, I mean, just looking at those numbers and those loads, that's a lot.
Yeah, I
That
think
is a lot.
yeah, I'm not touting it as okay, we're going to have to enter this in World's Strongest Man kind of stuff, but I think it's
No,
just
no.
just spinning it that way just gives perspective to people that aren't like strength and conditioning nerds, or kind of in the field, or like bowlers aren't athletes. Yeah, all right. For anyone to do 100 air squats a day, and to do them every day for 5-6 days, let's give yourself some rest days in there. That's kind of 500 squats with a 0 pound weight. Now let's do 480 of those with a 15-pound weight. And wow. So I'll challenge, I
And
don't want
then
to say I'll challenge anyone, but even a moderate fitness enthusiast, or someone like yourself who you're like, all right, I'm going to try to work out with the kids. All right, dude, do 100 squats a day, every day. And I tell you what, by day 3, day 4, you're going to get some delayed onset muscle soreness. You're going to probably have some compensations and some suboptimal movement patterns, and need to see a movement restoration specialist like a physical therapist. Especially, and if you're a bowler, you should probably see somebody who is passionate about bowling and understands the sport and the mechanics of the sport.
right, and that brings us full circle, right? We have bowling, and when you have physical therapy, and if you combine those two, now you have clients who are bowlers, and now you have that little niche besides your regular passion of being a physical therapist and a trainer and an optimist. So it's great that now that you have all these things that have come into your life and they're all intertwined, and I would say you're happier now than you would have been if you would have been a doctor,
Yeah,
where you're putting 120 hours a week and you're grinding out like like you're at the deli at Jules. Next number 43, come on in. All right, what's your problem? All right, here, cold medicine, here you go. All right, next. And it's just a turnstile. Let me get as many patients in here so I can get paid by insurance. And where now you're like, I'm focusing on things that I love, which is my passion for physical activity, for physical fitness, and my passion for sports, and everything's just coming in together. And I just think it's beautiful that you're able to have that. Not many people can have that. And it kind of speaks to just following your passion, following everything that you love, and if you put it out there and you keep working for it, it'll come to fruition.
I know it sounds so trite when you say that, but that's true. That concept that you said was something that just within the past year, um, I'm using different verbiage or syntax to talk about it, but it's called living your ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. I don't know, and I could share
No,
this
I've
with
never heard of
you.
it. Yeah, go ahead, go for
And
it.
I had it on a chart somewhere. I'll share it with you. Ikigai, Igai, ikigai, and it
Hmm.
is four circles that are overlapping. And these four spheres or influences or circles are doing something that you're passionate about, doing something that you love, doing
Hmm.
something that you're good at, right? Because I could love bowling, but I not might not be great at it, and that's the case. I'm
Right.
pretty good at bowling, but I'm not great at it. But I'm passionate about it. But fortunately, with this practice niche, it's something that I'm passionate about. Um, we're getting amazing results, so I think it's something that I'm pretty good at. It's something that there is a societal need for, so I'm blessed to have understood that this is an underserved population. Bowlers are athletes. And then the fourth piece of the ikigai is it's something that you can get compensated for. And in this case, fortunately so. Had I not had this long background of being a physical therapist and having my own clinics and being a business owner, I don't think that compensation piece or the vision to have that would have come so much. But to your point, there was a little bit of blind faith of, hey, build it and they will come. But that blind faith wouldn't have happened, again, if I didn't have support crew around me. And kudos to especially my wife and my son, Tyler, for allowing me the freedom and the space to go do that, and the support that, hey, man, give it a try. And if not, we still love you. And, we can, especially at the beginning, even financially support you. Not so much my son, because he was only 10 months old, and guy didn't he would see change on the street and on the floor. He would pick it up, but he didn't have pockets, so so he didn't have much money, so he couldn't help me compensating. But God bless my wife,
So,
Jennifer Galley.
so he was frugal at a young age, which is great. That's
Yeah, I
great,
don't know
being
about
frugal.
frugal. He just didn't have the resources for pockets. Like, he wanted to get the money, but he couldn't. He's like, I'm 10. It's like I'm barely in diapers. What do I do with this money? Whatever. Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. So obviously we're both sports guys, and you talked about your dad and his Giants being in the growing up in that area. Were you a Giants fan or Jets fan?
No, so in my area, I'd probably say about 80 to 85% of everyone around us were Giants fans. So I lived 4 miles from Giants Stadium.
Oh wow.
So I'd probably always go to one or two preseason games a year. I talked about my cousin Mark earlier, who's 8 years my elder, kind of gave me some musical influence and some sports influence. He's that guy, like when I was in second grade, he's like, okay, I'm a freshman bowling, intramural bowling. Oh, this is great. So, and probably even before that, probably kindergarten, first grade, probably first grade, he was a Giants fan like his father ahead of him. And his father was a very successful football coach in Hudson County for 30 years, played semi pro ball himself, diehard Giant fan. His son became a Giant fan, but for a 7, 8 year period where my cousin Mark, who was, I guess from 73 to 83, he was 10 to 20 years old, right? So that's when he's cutting his sports teeth. And in the 70s,
Right.
the Steelers were one of the dominant teams. So he's like,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. He liked Lynn Swan. Dude, I fell in love with Lynn Swan and the Steelers. My favorite color was black, and I never went back. And he and I were the only people in our entire family that were not Giants fans, except my cousin Johnny, who is a Jets fan. God bless his soul. Uh,
God bless his soul.
yeah, but the ironic thing is that by the mid late 80s, Mark kind of dropped. He always has a soft spot in his heart for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's a diehard Giants fan again.
Okay.
But I am a
Okay.
Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
So that is your team. So you've got to be happy that the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Steelers, just fleeced the Bears with this for a 6 rounder for Justin Fields, and you've got Russell Wilson on a 1 year contract.
It's so funny the way that all played out. And you said fleece the Bears. I know you're a smart guy and you know people. Do you know who this is now his second year at the helm? But you know who the name of the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I know you're a Bears guy, so you might not know, but you're a smart guy, so maybe you do know.
Yeah, no, I don't. Off the top of my head, I don't remember his name. I know it is his second year.
His name is Omar
But
Omar Khan, like the
yes,
Wrath of
yes,
Khan. So
yes, yeah,
I've been
yeah.
seeing things that the Steelers fleeced the Bears in the great con job of all time, like, but they made it Kahn,
Yeah.
and they really did. So all along, and I have many friends that are Bears fans, and I support the Bears while I'm here. They were always my
Hmm.
third favorite team growing up
There you
because
go.
I thought they were hard nosed, ran the ball well, played defense. I'm not going to mention that my second favorite team was the Packers, but that is only because my best friend from age 11 was a Packers fan. I was a Steelers fan.
Okay.
Everyone around us was Giants fans. And back then, like you didn't know if your team how your team did until you read the Monday newspaper or maybe saw it
Correct.
on George Michael Sports Machine. Like that's
Oh, I love that
right,
show.
man. And that's how I got my fandom. Oh, and 1 minute and 45-second highlight of the and that's how you did it, or you read it, or if they
Yeah.
made the playoffs, kind of thing. And I was fortunate that they were a winning team during my formative years. But we were like kindred souls that like, oh, everyone loved the Giants. It's like enough, enough. So it's like I rooted for his team, he rooted for my team, like the non out of we were like the two misfit toys.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
and at that point, dude, I didn't have that much of an awareness or sensibility of division rivals with the Bears because I like the Bears too, and I loved Walter Payton, and the history, tradition, Papa Bear Hallis, all of it. Like as a 10, 12, 15-year-old kid, I thought that was awesome. Um, so I understood, and I was listening to a handful of your podcasts about the whole Bears and the Justin Fields situation, the handling of
Yeah.
it. But anyway, as an outsider, I was like if I were a Bears fan, I would hope that they keep the quarterback. What are they going to retread again? Fourth time to try to take a new quarterback? And I felt that enough weapons weren't provided for him, all these sorts of things. But as a Steelers fan, I was pining. I'm like, dude, I would love to get this Fields guy. I don't want Kirk Cousins. I don't want Geno Smith. I don't want this person. I don't
Yeah.
want that person.
Yeah.
I wanted Justin Fields. And then when I heard they signed Russell Wilson, I'm not the biggest Russell Wilson hater, although the past year and a half, 2 years, I've kind of grown a little sour on his, I guess the man he
Antics.
is, or his personality, or the lack
Yep.
of leadership, or the prima donna
Hmm.
diva, and sort of the I talk fast. I'm doing this, and it's all for God. Like I don't know. There's such a ingenuity to that. It's so disingenuous. So I don't like that. But I'm not a hater of him. But when he came to us, I'm like, oh no. I was like, now there's no chance of getting Fields because we got that veteran. There's no way we would have both of them. And at least the silver lining to the other side of that Russell Wilson coin, it was like, all right, we only got him for 1 year, and we're only paying $1.2 million.
You're not paying anything for it, yeah, at all.
So then when I had about 7 friends send me the Justin Fields things, like I mean, I'm smiling now. It's just very exciting. And then also like yesterday, the day before, I had other people send me stuff that Justin Fields had was entertaining offers from 4 different teams, one of which to start, and reportedly Minnesota. But Justin Fields only wanted to go to Pittsburgh, and the Bears did him right by they did him the one solid by sending him to Pittsburgh. So that makes me even more happy. I'm so impressed with his athleticism. His rushing numbers are staggering, and let's not lambast him because I don't think he's had enough support. And I know he's had, I guess, 3 full years, but still not enough with a support system to mature and grow for the verdict to be out on him. I mean, I think it's the exception rather than the rule that in your second year or third year, you're like lighting it up and you're, Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or whatever. I think that Justin Fields has the potential to be even more than both of those two aforementioned guys in 2 to 3 years in the right system.
Yeah, I believe that, while he didn't get the ideal situation with the GM changing, the coach changing, the 3 OCs he had, lack of offensive line. I mean, he had decent wide receivers, decent running game, and a decent tight end the entire time. Um, my biggest thing was his inability to make a quick decision and get rid of the ball quicker. With knowing that your offensive line is not great, you have to get rid of the ball within 2 seconds. Okay, then that means you're throwing to the tight end or running back a little bit more, or you're trying to stretch the field with your wide receivers. So that's where I compare him, and I look back at look at the Packers. They had Jordan Love. He's got pretty much the same offensive line and no name wide receivers, and he threw for 4,000 yards. So that's where I'm like, okay, why couldn't Justin Fields elevate his teammates? That's where I'm looking at it.
And that's why
And
the
now that you have
compensation was a sixth round pick and maybe a fourth if he gets that
maybe a fourth
50
piece,
plus
yeah, if he
percent.
plays more
Yeah.
than 51%. So I wish him the best. He came to our high school a couple months ago. He was very nice to everybody, took pictures, for the amount of time that was here. Very nice kid. I wish him all the best luck, and I hope that he's successful and he's the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the next 20 years, whatever 10 years, whatever it may be. I think that's a good organization to be in. I think there's a better structure and more stability in Pittsburgh. And again, I wish him the best. I just it's sad that it didn't work out here.
Yeah. No, it is
Because he loved the city and the city really loved him. They really took the and attached to him. So, and right now we know we're I guess it's Caleb's time. I guess if they draft Caleb, I'm not sure if they're going to do that. It's not 100%, but I look forward to the next chapter of the Bears, and we play the Steelers next year, not this year. We play them next year.
we'll see. That'll be a fun
Yeah,
homecoming game.
yeah, fun homecoming game. Oh, all right. I think we covered just about everything.
We did. Sorry if I talk too much. I have a tendency of
No, no,
doing that,
that's the
brother.
whole point for you to talk. That is the whole point. But bowling, I think next week, I'm gonna try to do better. I got to finish those spares, and I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I literally just took out one bowling ball last week, and I'm saying I'm gonna use just this ball, and I'm gonna manipulate the ball to the way I wanted to do it, especially with the long pattern. Um, I was struggling on the spares, but I had pretty a lot of strikes, half of my strikes.
Yeah, you said it was over 50%, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, at like 15 or 16 strikes on Tuesday. So it was it was strike or nothing. So I'm getting closer. I've been going to 170s consistently for the past couple of weeks. And they should have been 200 games. If I fix those spares, there should be 200 games, and I'll be in your
Z,
level.
there's no doubt. You throw the ball well. You have good mechanics. Z, in no, honestly, in a month, how many times would you go to open bowl for practice sake? In a month,
Like bowling separately from the
yeah.
league, none.
Okay, because we got to get you doing some spare drills and spare zones. Like
Okay.
that's. I think the two things I learned the most relevant that are still, I think, key parts of my game today were those things I
Uh-huh.
learned at Dick Ricker's bowling camp in '88 and '89. Those two things, A, were the mental game. I know my mental game can improve, but I think my mental game makes up for my for my physical downfalls
Hmm.
and spare shooting. Having a system, and it's just math and it's very simple, but you need to get on the lanes to execute. So you get that
Okay.
neuromuscular experience to codify that in your brain and make it a muscle
Hmm.
memory and be more consistent. And if you do
Yeah.
your farmer's carries and your RDLs and your one-legged bridging and your curtsy lunges, you'll be more stable at the line and have greater what do you call it? Shot consistency and less sprayability and greater spare percentage.
Love it. Love it. All right, Paul, thank you for joining and being intoxicated with me. And I can't wait to see you on Tuesday. We'll talk some more. But thank you for doing the podcast, man. It was a lot of
Sounds
fun.
good, my brother from another mother. I really appreciate the time and look forward to doing this again and seeing you on Tuesday.
We'll see you next time.